I'm Diane Malik, Business Services Advisor at the library, Arlington Heights Memorial Library. Thanks so much for coming. Other people, we have 20 registered, so I think we're still going to be having other people who come in, and I'll just let them in as they get there. But I wanted to just let you know that we are recording the program. So in the upper right corner of the box, of your own box, there are those 3 dots. So if you wanted to change your name because you want something else to be on there, please go ahead and do that. And also, we don't have anybody right now who has their video on, but just that so that people know they could, of course, stop their video as well. I want to just mention that we have every month SCORE business mentoring that you can sign up for, and it's one-on-one virtual conversations with business experts, and you could just do it over Zoom like this, and it's in our program's calendar. That's just always something that's of interest to people who come to these other programs if they don't realize that we have that. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn it over. We've got Lynée Alves with Interview Like an Expert with us to talk about rebuilding your business with exceptional employees.
Well, great. Thank you so much, Diane. And thank you for hosting me. And thanks to everybody for joining.
And Lynée, I'm sorry, I forgot one bit of housekeeping. We're just going to ask everybody that if you have questions throughout, please put them in chat. Anything that you want, any questions you have, or anything else that you want to talk about a little more, and Barb and I are going to monitor that, and we'll bring them up to Lynée at the end.
Yep, we'll be taking questions at the end. So yes, please, just to repeat, since we have got somebody who's joining right now. I'm going to wait till I see that they're connected to the audio. There we go. We are going to take questions. So if you want to put them in chat, just go ahead and do that. We're going to hold them to the end and see if people may even have some similar questions so that we can batch and group them. And but of course, you'll be welcome to ask questions at the end too. So with that, I am going to take myself off of video and I'm going to share my presentation that I'd like to walk you through today. And it is all about hiring exceptional employees, which I think every business is quite interested in. All right, so let me get into slideshow mode so that you can see everything I've got for you. So as we all know, COVID-19 has absolutely impacted every business, but certainly and most especially small businesses who were the first to probably feel the impact most heavily, who perhaps had more restrictions if you're in a restaurant business or any type of small business where there was extra restriction. You really felt the impact of our quarantine and of lockdown very significantly and severely. So what I want to talk to you about today is as you work to rebuild your business, as you reopen, whether that's gradually or whether you're fully open, again, if you've had to let go employees simply because your business came to a standstill, or if you had to furlough employees that you had intention of bringing back, whatever the case, it's important to note that you have an opportunity here. You have an opportunity to reset your business and your employee base. And I want to talk to you today about how you can do that most effectively and attract and retain top quality employees. So let's get into it. Oops. Why is this not advancing? 1 second. All right, I'm going to do this. And I'll advance here. Okay, so today we are going to talk about recruiting, interviewing, onboarding, and retaining quality employees for your business. So that's quite a lot, and I'm going to move through the material pretty quickly for you. But first I'll introduce myself. My name is Lynée Alves, and I am president of Interview Like an Expert. I have over 20 years of experience recruiting, interviewing, and hiring at top-tier organizations, including the Chicago Tribune, Apartments.com, and most recently Comcast. And I now coach businesses and individuals on the recruiting and interviewing processes. So first, let's talk about really where it all starts, the importance of effective recruiting and hiring. Having open positions to fill can have a significant short-term and long-term effect on your business, right? It has a time impact. You've got to create or maybe update a job posting, create ads for your opening, place the ads, review resumes, schedule interviews, conduct interviews, train. It's a lot, right? It's a strain on you, particularly as a small business. It also has a hard cost, right? If you have to pay to advertise your opening. It really can impact continuity of your business, which I'm sure many people have experienced no matter what the size of their business. It impacts sales, your revenue generation, obviously, and especially now when we've had businesses closed down or partially closed. And having an opening to fill can really impact employee satisfaction and morale. So let's talk about how you market and promote an open role and how you can do this most effectively. What are the best tools? Well, certainly for many businesses, they're going to love the idea of having free or word of mouth advertising. This would include friends, family, coworkers, professional contacts, or promoting on site, like with signage. But you can also use in-person and online networking like Facebook, and LinkedIn, Instagram, and email. So really taking advantage of, networking and connecting with your contacts. I was doing a session recently with an executive coach, and it was targeted to job seekers, but this applies to businesses as well. This executive coach said so many job seekers consider networking or promoting things within kind of a tight circle. But it's so important to consider broadening that and really telling anybody you know about, in this case, your job opening. If you want to attract quality employees, talk to everybody you know, not just other business owners, because that next employee who could be a great fit might come from a place you just don't expect. So the other option, of course, is paid advertising. That includes primarily online job boards. I mean, I used to work in the newspaper business, but that's not such an effective place to place job openings anymore. So now you're looking at Indeed or ZipRecruiter, Glassdoor, CareerBuilder, LinkedIn, etc. So those are, places that you can promote. But let's talk about, regardless of where you promote and how you promote, the important thing is, how do you attract a quality candidate? Well, it's really by crafting a unique and compelling job posting. Your job posting is an opportunity for you to differentiate your business and this role from other businesses who are competing. So if you have a restaurant business, for example, well, there's a lot of restaurants out there competing for talent if everybody happens to be hiring or rehiring at once. So how are you going to differentiate your business? First of all, in a job posting, it's important to define the job duties and requirements, but it's also important to do a little bit more than that. But let's start with that. You want to highlight benefits to the potential job seeker. So as much as you are recruiting for an employee, you're also needing to sell your business to the candidate. That's how you get a quality candidate, right? If I'm a quality candidate, I can see that somebody's job posting is a little more compelling or interesting or contains some things that the other ones don't. And it's going to maybe make me put that business at the top of my list to apply for. So benefits can include traditional benefits, of course, which a lot of people look for, whether that's medical, dental, 401k, right? But they're also looking for simpler things like advancement opportunities, right? And here's where, again, smaller, mid-sized businesses can still compete. Unique benefits that you want to talk about if you have them, your company culture, maybe professional development or mentoring opportunities, flexibility, if that's something that you're able to offer, office or staff lunches, contests, raffle drawings, anniversary gifts, etc. So there are ways that businesses can always be creative and create a compelling message for potential employees. So when we talk about marketing and promoting an open role, I pulled a few job postings. These are actually not really recent. They're from a little while ago, but they really just illustrate the point, right? Here's something for a customer service associate. And we've got a lot of specifics here, right? What the responsibilities include. And the first thing talks about a team environment, operations excellence for guest satisfaction, holding guests as a higher priority, right? You can hear that there is a theme here in this posting of what they're looking for. And they're really talking not just about what are you going to be doing in this role, but they're asking for a specific type of personality, specific qualities from the people who apply. So that's great, right? So some of it is a qualification that is not attitude, like being able to, fluently speak or read English, right? Capable of counting money. But then here we go again with guest focus, anticipating needs and exceeding expectations. So you can see that they're creating here a posting that really describes the type of person they're looking for. So let's look at another one. In this one, you can see that this role, and it's like a restaurant role, and that's fine, but all it does is describe the specific things that this employee is going to need to do, the actual job duties, and it says nothing about attitude or motivation, right? And it really just doesn't describe a personality that they're looking for. So if all you're describing is, hey, here's what I want, somebody, a warm body effectively to clean and sanitize our kitchen, right? And operate the dishwashing machine, you're going to get what you ask for. You're not asking for anything more. And, but you want to, and I think you should as a business owner or manager. So you can really see the difference in both of those postings. So marketing and promoting an open role can be fun. You can be creative and have fun. Now, with smaller and mid-sized businesses, they don't have huge budgets, especially not now. And so what's nice is smaller businesses actually have the ability to do something like these sandwich boards, right? That large businesses don't. A big office building downtown, they can't put a sandwich board outside to say, hey, we're hiring. But look at how engaging these look. I mean, one is really cheery, just to say requesting volunteers, but I love this one here. Are you always awesome? Then we're always hiring. So we're always looking for great talent. You can see I've got a recurring theme here with this. Now, aren't these signs a little bit more fun? Again, these are free. So I want to focus on what's achievable and attainable. And these are certainly for more local businesses. Everything here is really basic. It's part-time, open availability, age requirement, but I love this, must like smiling and happy things. And this other sign simply says now hiring fun people. Again, they're defining the type of person that they want to attract. So isn't that a better sign than this? Here we've got cook needed, apply within. Not much description there. And, if you're just looking for any old cook, that's what you're going to get here. Here's another one. Just join the team. We're now hiring. You just making a couple of quick, small tweaks to free signage that you include at your business can make all the difference in terms of the type of person you attract. Okay. Now let's move on to what our takeaways are here. So for recruiting, for trying to solicit, applicants, whether it's free or paid, your message matters. I want you to think about the type of person that you want to attract and then create signs, postings, job descriptions with that person in mind. If you want people with great personalities who are motivated, self-motivated, just remember that you need to showcase that you have a great business personality as well. And like I said earlier, you're selling your business to your employee just as much as that potential employee is going to need to sell themselves to you in an interview. Okay, let's move on. And let's talk about what else matters when you're recruiting. So pay and compensation, obviously very top of the list for pretty much anybody, no matter what kind of job they're looking for. Core benefits, the environment, the culture, the leadership. Expectations of the role and position, very important. People want to know, what do you expect? The more they understand the role, the more they can determine also if they're a fit. Commuting time plays a role for a lot of people, although people may get more flexible now in light of the current aftermath of the COVID crisis. And opportunities for advancement are always of interest to people. So these are things that can help you attract people if you can highlight any of these in your recruiting efforts. And as I mentioned earlier, for smaller, mid-sized businesses, I think that you can overcome areas where you feel like, I can't compete with a big company. I don't have a 401k. That's okay. You don't have to have a 401k. Everybody is not looking for a job at a large company. Of course, everybody would like great benefits, but you can get creative. So, and any company can do this, but I think that as a small and mid-sized business, there's more flexibility in terms of what you can do, like smaller pay increases at more frequent intervals that are based upon performance. Additional paid time off based on goal achievements or project completion. Flexible scheduling opportunities, maybe having a free lunch Friday, whether it's once a month, twice a month, or weekly, depending on what your business can support. You know, my son, who is 20 years old and a college student, is working his second summer at a small business up in Vernon Hills. And his boss hires every summer a few college kids to come in and help him with his business, because that's his busy time based on what he sells. And he gives them a budget every week that they can spend on food to buy lunches for themselves. And they're in charge of this budget. And it's not a lot of money, but it is such a nice thing that he does for these kids. And I think it goes a long way for them and even for me in terms of how I feel about the business and how he's treating my child who's working there. So it's a pretty simple thing you can do in low budget. If you can afford any of it, great. And if you can't, you can do even something simpler like a potluck where people can bring food in and it doesn't cost you money as a business, but you give people some time to enjoy their time together. You can also focus on career and personal development sessions or mentoring sessions for teams or one-on-one, whatever you can accommodate. Title adjustments are often very valued by employees, even if they can't get a raise. That's something that they really value. And for more ideas, you can always solicit feedback from your team members because they often have lots of suggestions and ideas, and they're happy to share them with you. So now let's move on and talk about the importance of the interview process, right? My business is called Interview Like an Expert for a reason. This is really a point of passion for me, and I did it myself for many years, and I felt that I attracted and hired very, very exceptional employees. So I would like to share with you how I did that. First, let's talk about, what does your interview process look like? In my opinion, it is so important to have a standardized interview process. Is this something that you have? For example, do you have a list of a set of questions that you use consistently for every interview? I think consistency is so important. And do you have a goal in mind with every question that you ask? You know, I have a battery of questions that I've developed over the years. So during the 20 years that I interviewed, I had developed an interview question list, and now I've blown that out into an interview Q&A guide that I provide to businesses, and it's questions and desirable answers so that I can share what I've learned over my 20 plus years with businesses and help them to understand what they can do and how they can make this process work for them. And as we talked about earlier, as I mentioned earlier, have you really defined the qualities and characteristics that you're looking for in every employee? One of the best ways to think about this is look at current or past employees who were successful in their roles and who you thought were just a superstar. What made them successful? Was it their attitude? Was it their work ethic? Was it the fact that they anticipated needs, that they were engaged and thinking ahead all the time? These are all qualities of great employees. You know, I was listening to a business podcast recently, and a gentleman who coaches businesses was speaking, and I thought something he said was so compelling. And what he said was that a lot of people ask him, hey, Bill, how do you hire such motivated employees? And, what they said was, how do you motivate your employees? And he said, I don't motivate my employees. I hire motivated people. And that's what you need to focus on when you're engaged in the hiring process. And when you're looking for good talent for your business, it's going to stick with you and perform in your business over time. Hiring motivated people. As we know, bad hires are really a drag on your business, on any business of any size. But why do bad hires happen? Well, Career Builder did a survey in 2012, but I'm sure that these things are consistent about why companies make bad hires. And 43% of respondents said they made a bad hire because they moved to hire somebody quickly. Now, I recently have been consulting with a large local nonprofit, and I can attest to the fact that they came to me saying, oh, our interview process, our hiring process is not good. We seem to not be getting the people that we want. So we want your help with this. Well, it was interesting because when I got into their organization and started working with them, they fell back quickly into old habits, right? They had an opening, and the first interview we would have, they would be finding qualities that they liked in the person, or they would be selling the person on the job in the interest of hiring them as quickly as possible, instead of assessing, is this person the right fit for what we need right now? So I saw firsthand how hard this is for people, and I understand the struggle of needing to fill jobs quickly, but I can assure you that putting time in on the front end and making sure that you interview a number of candidates will help you in the long run. So why else do bad hires happen? Why do managers hire quickly? Well, current staff may be overwhelmed. A project might require new talent, and they're hurrying to get somebody on board so that they can get this big project out the door. Or a key employee has left the company. And some managers actually doubt their hiring skills. And this is a really big issue. I was surprised to see that this is, people self-admitting that more than 1 in 5 survey respondents, the same Career Builder survey, said they lacked the skills to interview and hire people effectively. But as we all know, business moves quickly and people just need to get on with it. I worked with another small business owner locally in Arlington Heights, and she came to me saying this was a really core issue for her. She's like, I need to hire people, but I know I've not had good luck with it. I've not had a good track record, and I'm not sure that I'm asking the right questions. And she didn't feel confident about her hiring process. So we worked on that, and I provided her with some of these tools that could help her hire more effectively. So here's the reality for smaller businesses. Here's somebody I spoke to who's a small business owner with 35 employees. When we talked about focusing on this, she told me, this is something I know I need to focus on, but other business issues always seem to rise to the top of my to-do list, and this just doesn't become a top priority for me. So let's talk about interviewing best practices. What can you do to have a better process? Here are the 3 keys: interview preparation, improved interview efficiency, and then improving the quality and the fit of every hire you make. So let's start with interview prep. Reviewing resumes. You always want to get a copy in advance of any interview, and you want to read through it to focus on it with your full attention, just 5 to 10 minutes. And I usually take a highlighter and will highlight or use a pen and underline or circle things that are of interest to me. One thing I want you to pay attention to is the quality and the clarity of the content. You want to look for typos, make sure it's clearly written and easy to understand. But really, I also want you to think about and note when you review a resume, do the skills that are on that resume, are they a fit for the job that you're hiring for? Just because you get an applicant doesn't mean that you need to interview them. Even if you get few applicants, I would really encourage you to try and figure out how do you source more, because I'm a big believer in sourcing a lot of candidates and then reviewing resumes in detail to see who really could be a fit. So when I was working with this business in Arlington Heights, we did just this. She posted a job online, and we went through a number of resumes, and I really walked her through why did I not think that this person was good, and why did I think that this person was good. And it all had to do with how they wrote up their experience, right? This was effectively a sales position in an insurance agency. And the people who we ended up bringing in to interview were people who had prior customer service or sales experience. So those, the experience that they have previously should relate to the job that you're working for. This person had shared with me a resume for a woman who brought no relevant experience, but she was thinking of bringing her in because she had been referred by somebody. So that's kind of the other thing I want you to consider is you think about how you're attracting the right talent. So, working your network, getting referrals is super helpful. But if somebody gets referred to you and they don't bring the experience that you require or that you need and that is going to make them successful in that job, it's okay to say, this person just isn't the best fit and I really need X, Y, and Z. So pay attention to all of these things and really consider them as you review resumes. Now, if you want, depending on the type of job that you're hiring for, perhaps you won't do this for, kitchen staff at a restaurant, a LinkedIn review. But if you're hiring for any type of a role that might be customer facing, whether it's customer service or sales or marketing, or even any role that again requires some level of professionalism, check this person's profile on LinkedIn. They may have one. Now, it's not a substitute for a resume. What I like to do is verify that the LinkedIn profile matches up reasonably well with the resume. In my opinion, they should really be very similar. I actually did, when I was hiring for Comcast, come across a gentleman who had applied for a job and I was getting ready to interview him. And when I looked at his resume and went onto LinkedIn, I found that they didn't agree at all. And they didn't agree on some pretty major things, like the school he graduated from, the college he graduated from. And that sent up some red flags for me. Turns out that guy ended up canceling the interview before we had it, but I definitely had my radar up going into that interview thinking, this is maybe not somebody who's a fit. And in that case, I didn't bring him in. Somebody else had set that interview up for me. But as I did my prep work, I discovered some inconsistencies. On LinkedIn, you can also look to see if you have any shared connections, whether it's companies, people, organizations, local organizations, or otherwise. Just kind of a nice point of reference and kind of a nice conversation starter. You can also see if they've given, or more importantly, received recommendations from former employers or other people they've worked with. And just like with a resume, pay attention to the quality of the content here. Make sure that it reads nicely and it's well structured and well written and there's no typos. This is important attention to detail that is going to be a good indicator of how good they're going to be in their job. You want somebody who has attention to detail and who knows these things. Now let's talk about improving your interview efficiency. I suggest that you use phone screens as a starting point. This helps you to reduce the amount of time that you're engaged in this process because, again, I know time is money and I know that many people are stretched in their jobs. So why do I recommend a phone screen? Well, it takes just 15 to 20 minutes and it gives you an opportunity to ask questions, collect some initial information, listen to how somebody communicates on the phone. Are they high energy? Are they low energy? Are they articulate? Are they not articulate? These are important things that are probably key considerations for you in thinking, is this somebody I want to bring in for an in-person interview or do now perhaps a Zoom interview with, depending on your business. So it will help you make a more informed decision about whether you want to move forward or not with a face-to-face interview. So now let's talk about how you use the in-person interview to improve the quality and fit of every hire that you make. First of all, when you're interviewing, I think it's incredibly important to take detailed notes during interviews. I write so fast, my hand almost hurts. I capture as much as I can, not just keywords, not just a word here and there. I will write down sentences. I will write down what they say in the interview. Because if you're interviewing, let's say 4 or 5 people for a job, I want to be able to go back to my notes and start discerning, well, what did this person say? What did that person say? And kind of remember who's who. And the best way to do that is through detailed notes. So let me talk about a key thing that I want to highlight for you on how you take interview notes. And you don't want to write them on an application or a resume. And I want to tell you why. First of all, it's not very much room and you can't really capture detailed notes if you're taking notes that way. And by the way, resumes or applications can be requested if any candidate were to file a discrimination claim for any reason. So if you have notes on those documents, they would be reviewed and admissible as part of any investigation. So this is really a protection point for you too. So make sure you just get a pad of paper, notebook, whatever works for you, and plan to take notes down and attach them to the resume. So the notes are separate from the resume. And this is from the Society of Human Resources Management. So I just want you to know this is official information and I want to make sure you're aware of it. Now, the other thing that's really important when you're taking notes is keeping them impartial and relevant to the task at hand. Don't write down notes about a candidate's appearance, certainly not about their race or demeanor as a way of remembering who is who. The notes you write should be related to the questions you ask and the answers you hear. Now, this doesn't mean that you can't write things down like maybe, sometimes I would make notes kind of at the top of the page that I wanted to capture and call out to myself later. Maybe not a great communicator, lower energy. So those are things that are fine and they're relevant skills probably, right, to the job at hand. In my case, I was hiring for sales a lot, but also for administration roles, operations roles. And I was looking for people who had energy, who had motivation, lacked, very short answers, right? Not much detail, right? Maybe if I'm interviewing somebody and I can't get them to kind of elaborate on things, I would note that because it would be kind of an indicator of their communication skills. So that's something else that's important for you. Now, here's my final interviewing tip for you. I believe it's so important for you to create and use standardized interview questions. These provide a solid foundation for every interview you do. As I mentioned earlier, I did this for 20 years. I was able to go into every interview very calm and relaxed because I wasn't wondering, what am I going to ask this person? I wasn't reviewing their resume as they were walking in the door because I had taken 5 or 10 minutes to do it, but whether it's that day or whether it was a few days earlier. Having your questions defined also helps you have kind of a logical flow to your interview, right? I would start out with general questions. Tell me about how you found this position. Why do you think why are you interested? Tell me about why you chose the school you went to. Just some kind of break the ice questions to get people relaxed and talking. And then I start working in interview questions. So it's just a nice flow. And the other reason you want to have questions is because it allows you to listen and engage with the person who you're speaking with, whether it's on the phone, whether it's via a computer, a Zoom chat, video conference, or whether it's in person. You want to be listening and engaged. You want to be really paying attention to what they're saying and how they say it. So it also, having this list of questions, I think it really demonstrates to a candidate that you're prepared and that you're taking, that you're making this a priority session, right? That you're not coming in like, let me look at your resume and let me ask you a question. You're coming in prepared. And I do think candidates appreciate this. It's a way for you to model the type of behavior that you would want in an employee who you would hire. You can also then keep things conversational, like I said, with a logical flow. You aren't kind of dashing from one concept to another, or from one area to another in terms of your question kind of flow. And what's great about having a list of questions, this is something that I have found so helpful. And one of the benefits of this guide that I've written is that over 20 years, I interviewed so many people that I realized over time, for this question, here are some answers that I really, really like and that have produced really good hires. For this, and here are questions that haven't, or here are questions or answers, that haven't really been good. So once I used this same battery of questions over time, I got very comfortable with when a candidate would answer, knowing in my head, that's a good answer, that's maybe not such a good answer, based on what I know of all of the candidates that I've interviewed over the years. So improving your interview process will absolutely benefit your business because bad hires cost you time and they cost you money. So now let's talk a little bit about onboarding new employees. This is also an important element of attracting and retaining good talent. It's important to have an onboarding process. It doesn't have to be super complex, but it should be defined. It demonstrates that your business has plans and systems in place, and it reflects positively on you. So even if it's just a simple piece of paper, right, that you've got a number of questions, a number of kind of like a checklist, right? that's important for an employee to see that you have a thought out plan. Hey, here's what your training process, your onboarding process is going to look like over the next week, 2 weeks, 1 month, whatever it might be. It sends this important message that they are welcome and that you value them. And like I said, it really indicates, I think, a very high level of professionalism. So now let's get into employee retention. If you bring people in with great onboarding, if you have a great and structured interview process, you're a lot of the way there because you're demonstrating and showing potential employees what they can expect from you as an employer. Of course, there are other things that you can do as well. So how do you retain employees? Well, communication, just like with anything, relationships, personally or professionally, is key. Establish a culture where open communication is modeled and encouraged. And certainly you can define what this looks like, right? Complaining is not open communication, but addressing an opportunity for a business improvement and providing ideas and solutions to improve that should be welcome. And actively solicit feedback too. Demonstrate that you want to hear from your employees, whether it's through conversation, through surveys that you can do very simply and easily online and for free. Even having a feedback box on site is a great way to do it. And remember, it's important that any feedback be responded to or addressed upon or even maybe acted upon so employees do start to understand and see that their voices are considered and listened to. And certainly, finally, engage in conversations. Like I said, it's about communication with employees about their role, what's going well, what isn't. Maybe you do a check-in quarterly, or maybe you even do one monthly, or maybe a little more frequently when somebody's newer. Ask where you can lend help or support, demonstrate, and then back it up, right? Demonstrate that you care, and then demonstrate that you're going to follow up on that and back that up. Being engaged this way really goes a whole long way to attracting and also to, more importantly, retaining. Once you've attracted and hired somebody, retaining good employees who want to see your business succeed and who want to help you succeed if they see that this is a two-way street. So let's talk about the hiring process and what I've covered, because I've covered quite a lot quickly. Certainly, it all starts with your recruiting and hiring process, right? So in order to get the talent that you want, certainly the messages that you put out into the marketplace, whether it's a sign in your window, whether it's an ad on an online job board, or whether it's an email that you send out to all of your contacts, defining the qualities that you're looking for in an employee is so important. And then holding yourself to that high standard that you have as well, and not falling into the trap that is very easy to fall into, and I do understand it, of hiring quickly because I'm not finding anybody. I worked in organizations where I was managing millions and millions of dollars of advertising sales revenues annually. And there were occasions where I had to interview for quite a while before I found somebody, right? It's all timing. You never know who's in the market at any one time. In this case, we're going to have a lot of people available in the marketplace. So perhaps you may have an easier time finding people and reviewing those resumes. So that's kind of the next piece, right? The reviewing of resumes, making sure that you really look closely at what people have written on their resume and understand that just because somebody has applied doesn't mean that they should be an automatic consideration for interview and hiring. If their qualifications don't match up on paper, it might be really hard to make that person fit into the role and into what you're looking for. Your interview process really needs to be structured in order to help people, help yourself and help your candidates kind of get through a process that makes sense. And for you, ultimately, the most important thing is being then able to evaluate a variety of candidates based on the same questions that were asked consistently through your process. Onboarding employees is really important. It doesn't have to be overly complex. Listen, I have been in a position where I've had an employee starting on Monday, and on Friday I'm writing up a basic plan. So once you do the one though, however, you can usually retool it and modify it depending on the role and depending on who's going to be training that person, but just having some kind of a structure in place, and maybe delegating that to other people if you can. If you can't, then defining it, because that will ultimately make your life easier down the road. And then focusing on how you can retain high quality employees is so very important. And there are lots of little things that any business can do, but like I said, in particular, small and mid-sized businesses, because larger businesses, like many of the ones that I worked at, they actually have less flexibility. We didn't have, I should say, the ability to say, hey, I'd like to offer this or that, because there were corporate guidelines in place. When you're a small and mid-sized business, you have less of that. You have more flexibility. And so that's an opportunity for you to differentiate and really think about how you can compete against other local businesses in order to attract and hire the best talent. Because again, the talent that you hire, that's the backbone of your business. So putting time and effort into this whole process and having it be well thought out, it doesn't need to be overly complex, but having all of this in place is really going to help you build a super strong foundation for your business that can grow over time. So with that, that is all of the material that I wanted to go over. I did really a high level overview of a number of things, but I'd love to see if we have questions from anybody that have been submitted, or if you want to submit some now, you can do so in chat. I see Diane's back on, so I'll let her take it from here.
Yeah, and so we did not have any questions submitted through the chat function, but I think because we're kind of a nice, we're not too large of a group, if anybody would like to just unmute and ask Lynée a question, I think it will work fine that way at this point, now that you've gone through all of your material. So if anybody would like to do that, please go ahead.
Yes, I would love to hear from you.
Any questions or comments?
Or any other areas that maybe I didn't cover that you were hoping to have covered. I would love to field any of those questions as well. I really am passionate about this process and about helping people figure out how to attract good talent and hire good talent. So, so anything is fair game.
No? Okay. Well, that's okay, I guess. You did a great job getting through everything.
That's all right. Okay.
Yeah. Which I guess that means we'll just be able to end a few minutes early on this one, which isn't a bad thing either, because it's a beautiful day.
That's right.
So, okay, if there are no last minute questions, then I just want to thank Lynée for doing this. And we do have one comment, all great information. Thank you. It just came.
Thank you. Well, thank you for attending. For everybody who's here, this is really great. And I know it's kind of weird to have to do it by Zoom, but it's great. And if any of this information is helpful to you, I'm thrilled to hear that. So thank you so much for your comment.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. And thank you, Lynée.
Thank you again, everybody. Have a great weekend and enjoy this great weather.